Well, welcome once again to our series called Life Hacks. Learning those little procedures, those little tips and tricks that make a life, a day, or maybe a task go much smoother and run more efficient. But that's all good when it comes to how to keep a pot from boiling over, or how to shell a hard-boiled egg, or how to hang a little tennis ball in your garage from a little fishing wire so you know exactly how far to pull the car up so you don't run into the freezer and let the door still shut. But what about the bigger issues of life? Is there such a thing as a life hack when it comes to love? Is there any shortcut? Are there any tips or tricks to go, man, we can do this so much better? I think there is. In fact, today I'm going to give you two. But wait, about a third of you are already tuning me out, and I get that. You've looked at the top of your note sheet, and you're all marriage hacks. And you're single, and maybe you're single by choice. Maybe you're single for a reason. Maybe you're single in the call to singleness and the giftedness. Maybe you're single because you're finishing school and you're just trying to get a career, direction in life going. Maybe you're single and you don't want to be single. I want you to do this. I want you to take marriage and put a big X through it right now. Top of your note sheet, cross out marriage. And right underneath it, write relationship. I'm going to give you some relationship hacks. We're going to talk about love, but I want you to think right now, who is it you need to develop a better, deeper relationship with? Who is it in your life? Is it a parent? Is it a child? Is it an employee? Is it an employer? Is it a significant other? Is it a spouse? Who is it right now that you go, man, this relationship is tanking, or this relationship needs work? And there are also some of you in here that are watching or listening today, and you just have a tough time making relationships. You're the type of individual that you tend to repel people, not attract people. There's a lot of relationship or non-relationship issues in your life. And maybe people, because they love you or care for you, they haven't spoken into it, and they just want to say, hey, you're not very friendly. You're not good at making relationships. People don't like being around you. And that's tough to say individually, so I get to do it in a group. This is for you today, to learn, oh, that's what it looks like. That's what I need to be doing differently to attract relationships and keep deeper relationships. Because there are so many of us that are married, part of this we're just going to really talk about marriage relationship. But this can apply at every level. So here's what we're going to do. The very first thing I want you to do is I want you to change the definition. And I want you to change the definition of love. Now, here's the problem. This is where some pastor reads some passage or gives you some biblical definition of love, and you roll your eyes, and you're like, whoa. I want to use your definition of love, not mine. So we're going to do something that's a little risky this weekend. In fact, for all of you in Carlsbad and San Marcos and Escondido and the township of Ramona, in Fallbrook, you're your second weekend opening your campus, second weekend in your building. Had over 1,000 people at the Fallbrook new campus last week. Absolutely amazing. And so you're jumping in too with us. We're going to do this as a little bit of a democracy. Everyone here in live is going to represent the rest of North Coast. And I know right now there's people in the edge going, I didn't vote on those people to represent me. Tough. And so I want to use your definition of love, not mine. So whatever we do with this, you're not going to walk out of here going, well, that was Chris's, or that was the Greek word for love, or the biblical, what you already know about love. And I'm going to show you that innately, you already know this first life hack. But there's a difference between knowing it and living it out. And I'm going to encourage you how to have a deeper relationship today, simply by living out what you already know. So I want to use your definition, not mine. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to come to a whiteboard, and we're going to define love. Now, we realize, man, this is a big issue that we're talking about. We realize that when it comes to love, there's a whole lot to... That's a pretty dang good circle, by the way. A little eggish, but I like it. I love fishing, especially right now. The bluefin are running. There's still some yellowfin in the area. On the right patties, there's yellowtail, there's dorado. Oh, are you kidding me? Oh, it's a good time to be a fisherman right now in Southern California. I love sushi. I love going to Hooked on Sushi. I love bringing other people so we can order like 20 rolls, and like other tables get up just to take a picture of our table, and I'm like, that's sushi eating right there. I love college football. Even when I'm working on Saturdays, I'll record 4 or 5 games, and I'll stay up Saturday night just speeding through 4 or 5 games. I love college football. I love Amy. Isn't that odd? That I use the same word for catching a fish and a sushi roll that I do for my wife of 22 years. We use love as this emotion, this feeling, this more than like. And yet my bet is, as we get into it, you're going to realize, I know it's different. So this is going to be love. There's an old geometry axiom that says the whole is equal to the sum of its parts. And that's all we're doing on math today. Don't worry about that. That's all I remember from math. What it means is love is split up into many different parts. And there's a lot of things that go into a loving relationship. And you can't just have one of these things, but there's going to be multiples. And so I want to ask you live, because you're representing us. Let's use marriage right now as a definition. What one word, if I ask you to have a true loving relationship, if you're going to have a loving relationship, it has to have an element of what? Trust. Thank you. Now we got the ball rolling. Trust. What else? Compassion and respect. Compassion. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Respect. What else?
Effort.
What?
Effort.
Oh, that was good effort on effort. Nice. Yes, sir. I'm putting that on the board right now. Effort. What else? What? Commitment. What else? Sacrifice and compatibility. Sacrifice, spell and hear and write at the same time. Compatibility. What else? Forgiveness. Hold on. Patience. Forgiveness. Patience. Did you say money? Money makes the board. We're putting money on the board. It definitely makes love easier at times, and it can be the source of a lot of unlove. So money's on the board. What else? Sex? That makes the board. What else? Honesty. Communication. Communication. Empathy. Determination. Integrity. Value. Understanding. I'm still trying to get value on this board. Babe. Value. Oh, faith? I thought you said babe. I was like, him. Put him on the board. Faith. What else? Humor. Good. What else? What? Parkour? What was that? Oh, support. That's better than parkour. What else? Grace. Service. Okay, that's good. I said that's good. This is a monologue, not a dialogue from here on out. I knew this was a bad idea. I think we would all understand if we wanted to go for another 15 minutes, we could probably double this wheel. We could probably keep adding more and more and more and more. But already you have given us the answer. You know this. Intuitively, when I say define love and the answers come quick, you know this. When we talk about love in our culture, when we talk about love, we talk about our feelings, we talk about our emotions. But when I ask you to define love, and this is going to be your first life hack jumping into it, you didn't give me feelings and emotions, did you? You gave me choices. Watch, your definition, not mine. No tricks here. I used your words. Rest of North Coast, you just have to go along with it. I used your words. I didn't mind meld this. I didn't hypnotize the crowd. I didn't give you the answers I wanted. I used your answers. You tell me, is it a choice or is it a feeling? Value. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to read something. You tell me, is it a, you're like, you said it's a monologue from now on. My fault, my bad. Is it a choice or is it a feeling? Value, compassion, understanding, trust, integrity, money. It made the board. Choice, honesty, sex. I'm gonna get it half credit. It is a choice. But if it's not a feeling, you're doing it wrong. So I'm gonna give you half credit. Quickly, communication, support, grace, service, empathy, humor. Not a choice. I just made you laugh at something you didn't want to laugh at in church. I'm gonna give humor a mark. It's a choice to be humorous, but laughter sometimes just isn't a choice. Faith, choice, forgiveness, sacrifice, compatibility, commitment, determination, effort, respect, choice, 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 choice. Did you get that? And yet we ask about relationships and being in love or loving. And we talk about emotions. We talk about our feelings, how I feel towards someone. How's your marriage? Is it a loving marriage? And we talk about how I feel emotively. And yet when I ask you to define love, you know this. It's a choice. Very little to do with feelings. But look on this board. What does our American, our Western culture, how do we get into relationships, especially romantic relationships? What is our dating process? We go out and have fun. We find stuff to do together that we enjoy. We have fun. There's laughter. And we quickly fall into some sexual and intimacy issues. And we talk about, our chemistry. We've fallen so in love. When we're together, we're just laughter. And then the chemistry, and we're not. I go, really? And we jump into marriage. And in marriage, you're going to hit problems. In any relationship, you're going to hit trouble. And I promise you, when you get trouble in your marriage, the laughter dies down, doesn't it? And this isn't happening anymore, is it? And you're left with what? You're left with those were the only two things on the wheel that got us here. That's how we fell in love with each other. I'm going to change that verbiage for the rest of your life. I'm going to prove to you it is impossible to fall in love. Because love is in fact, I want you to write it down in your note sheet. You can't fall in love. You can fall into emotion. You can fall into having fun with someone. You can fall into laughter. You can fall into sex, but you can't fall in love. It's a very, very small part of this wheel. No, don't get me wrong. I'm glad both of them are on this wheel. I'm a guy that likes laughter. I'm a fun guy, and I'm a big fan of number 2. I'm glad they're on the wheel. But that is a very small part of love. Because right underneath that, because love is a choice. And I wanted to start with you. Because you innately know what the Bible tells us about love, the creator of love, the one that wanted us to be in loving relationships. If you got a Bible, open it to 1 Corinthians chapter 13. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, if you've been with us the last couple of months, we've been in a book study in a book called Romans. Your Bible would probably just open to the book of Romans. We were in it for so long. The next book to the right is 1 Corinthians. If you got a New Testament, go to the back and start flipping. You're going to look for the guys' names: Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, 1 Corinthians. Starts with a C. Now, if there's a first, don't let the second fool you. Get the one in front of it. 1 Corinthians chapter 13. One of the premier chapters in the Bible that says this is love. Now, we're not talking about marriage. We're talking about how do I need to do this better with my parents? How do I need to do this better with a child of mine? How do I need to do this better with a team member, with someone at work, with an employee, with an employer? How do I become a person that has better friendships, real loving friendships, not just surface friendships in life? And 1 Corinthians 13 says this, verse 4. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It is not easily angered. It is not easily angered. Some of you need that 3 times. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres, and love never fails. 1 Corinthians 13, from our Creator, the designer of us, wanting us to have relationships, says, here's love. Love is a choice. Emotion, choice. The only emotion in 1 Corinthians 13 is anger, and it says love is not easily angered. But love is a choice. I want you to change your definition. Because you have not fallen out of love in your relationship. I don't care how cold it is. I don't care how stale it is. I don't care how heartless it is. You have not fallen out of love because you never fell into love. You've simply chosen to stop loving someone. It's a choice. And let me tell you why this is good news. Because when the choices of love are made, the heart will follow. Because when the mind is set on loving, the feelings and emotions will follow. They can come back. And I don't care how dead it is. I don't care how rotten it is. I was at a place in my life 21 years ago, I think we'll talk about a little later, that there's nothing anyone could have told me to say I'd love that woman again. I didn't want to be in love with that woman again, and I didn't want her to love me again. I'm stuck on the 10 freeway coming out of LA. It's where I worked. It's where we lived. We're 8 months into our marriage. The freeway comes to an absolute stop. There's helicopters up ahead. There's major traffic issues, major casualties, accident going on. They start turning cars around on the freeway about an hour into this. People start driving backwards on the shoulder to try to get off on the last off ramps. And I'm sitting there with my car turned off and I'm not moving. And I'm kind of glad I'm not moving. Because the sooner I get home, the more time I have to spend with her. And I'm tired of spending time with her. It was 2.5 years of great dating. Oh, it was 2.5 years of amazing dating relationship. And we got married, and 8 months into it, I realized on that freeway, I'm stuck. And I've married the wrong person. I didn't hate Amy. I didn't wish her any ill will. I just made a really bad choice. We're not compatible. This isn't going to work. Here's the problem. I'm a youth pastor at a Baptist church in East LA County. For the sake of this illustration, all you need to know about the Baptist church is once your youth pastor gets a divorce, he's no longer your youth pastor. I had a job that I loved. I had a couple hundred inner city kids coming to the safe house. We had it open almost every night of the week. It was amazing in Pomona. And I married the wrong person. She's finishing up her master's degree in physical therapy. She's working hard. She studies late. She goes to bed early. I stay up late until I'm dead tired. So by the time I do go into the bedroom, I can't expect anything from her because I'm not going to get it anyway. She wakes up early, she showers, she studies, she's out the door before I wake up, and that's the routine. We're sharing a roof, a very small bank account, and that's it. And we fell out of love. And I knew I had to get out of the relationship. And no one ever sat down and said, Chris, love isn't a feeling. Love isn't an emotion. Love is a choice. Because you guys thought you were in love. Man, we were having fun together. Man, we were laughing our head off. It was a blast dating her. Because we were trying so hard to keep ourselves pure because I was a youth pastor and not going all the way sexually and setting these boundaries that we can't cross. And I couldn't wait to get married. And the first 3 to 4 weeks were okay. Maybe the second month was okay. But man, this got difficult and it was nothing like dating. And the wheels came off. And 22 years ago, I almost threw away the best gift God had given me. And if anyone would have sat down and said, let me tell you how to be in love with her, I didn't know how to have the conversation and say, I don't want to be in love with her. Well, here's how Amy will be in love with you. I don't want her to be in love with me. We tried it. It doesn't work. And no one sat down and said, if you make the choices of love, the feelings of love will follow. You say, Chris, where do you get that? From the Bible? No, from The Bachelor. From The Bachelorette. We're getting our wisdom today from The Bachelor show on television. 21 seasons they have proved the Bible. For 21 seasons they have demonstrated 1 Corinthians 13 and what you intuitively know. You know the show. Get one strapping, chiseled, good-looking dude with the shirt off. 32 beautiful women, all living in a mansion that even if they all pooled their resources together, they could never afford. And here's the game. Try to see who can fall in love. And with a matter of days, they're all in love. Oh, as the weeks go on, this gets tough. Not that I watch the show. I mean, Amy does. And I simply sit there and support her in this endeavor. Oh, within 4 weeks, madness is broken out. 14 women are all in love with one guy. This poor guy has fallen in love with half of the women. By the time they get down to the final 6 roses, he gets up to call names. He just can't do it. And Chris, the host, comes into the show and they go off to the side. This is getting really hard, isn't it? Yeah. Tell me what's going on. I've fallen in love with all of them. And you watch the show for this. Even the third night, some girl gets sent home and they have the little limo cam, the confessional on her way out. She got kicked off the show. I thought we were gonna live forever. He was my soulmate. And I'm like, you never had a one-on-one with the guy. It doesn't matter. Have you ever noticed in 21 seasons, they've never gotten 4 weeks in and everyone's just sitting around going, hey, time out, this ain't working. None of us like each other here. You picked the wrong women. No. Pick 32 men or 32 women. And television has always, in the billions of people in the world, has always found someone's soulmate. Because the bachelor and the bachelorette understand 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Love is a choice. Put people in a mansion, romantically charged LED lighting, spray down the driveway so it always glistens. Even in the drought, stuff that you and I would get fined for, they just have, just to set the mood, the lighting. Make sure people put their mind to fall in love and their hearts will follow every single time. Put them in situations where they choose to love. Take them on dates that Amy and I do regularly, where the helicopter comes and picks us up. Takes us to the top of the glacier, where we have this private little tent and canopy, all carved out of ice with candles. And as we walk over the snow-capped peak, there is U2 and Bono singing for us. With or without you. And we're just slow dancing. We just call it date night. They get this. And I want to prove a point. Even television gets this. You choose to fall in love. You make the choices of love. And the heart would follow. I would be sitting here listening to this 22 years ago. Yeah, and then I'm stuck in this marriage. We could probably make it work. But man, I'm going to be stuck in this marriage. And no one told me, oh, no, this works for you. This is what's best for you. This is a God saying, I can get out of this what I created her or him for with this. In fact, let me encourage you with this passage. We're in 1 Corinthians 13. Take 3 books to the right, past the 2 Corinthians, Galatians, and Ephesians. Chapter 5. Ephesians chapter 5. Verse 1. Let me show you how this is going to work. Before I ask you to do some of the most unfair things maybe anybody's ever asked you to do in life, let me show you why I know this can work. Ephesians 5, verse 1 says this. Be imitators of God, therefore. Now that's a statement, isn't it? Why don't you go be God? I'll just create a solar system and a planet of people to worship me. He goes, no. In the area of having loving relationships, whether it's with the parent, whether it's with the son or a daughter, whether it's with employee, employer, friends at school, I'm going to tell you how to have a loving relationship. And the first thing it says is you're going to imitate God in this. Be imitators of God, therefore, as his dearly loved children, and live a life of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and a sacrifice to God. Paul writing to the church in Ephesus, where Timothy is a pastor, a jacked up city of pagan worship and temple prostitution, a city that has gotten lust, all confused with love. And Paul writes, and the New Testament comes screaming in to a first century Greek and Roman world and says, let me redefine this. You can do this. You can be like dad. You can imitate dad in relationships because you have his DNA in you. He made you to reflect his type of love. He made you to reflect this so you can imitate dad because you are his children. No. You are children that are loved. No. You are dearly loved children. You have a dad that says, I want you to have loving relationships. And I've built you to be able to do this. You can reflect me in this. Just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us. And there's a hint there. He goes, this isn't going to be easy. Oh, it's going to be worth it. That's not going to be easy. It's going to take sacrifice. Some of you are like, oh, Chris, living with this woman is killing me. And I'm like, you're on the right path. That's Christ-like. You're getting there. You're not dead yet, so you haven't completed the task. Shoo. That's Greek for God be with you. Shoo. Get after it. This is what we're supposed to do. There's a sacrifice involved. It's going to be a choice. Oh, those of you right now that have a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old at home, you know love is not a feeling. Unless they're sleeping. They're so cute when they're sleeping. But the rest of the day, it's a choice. Why did we bring him into the world? It gets better. Wait until they're teenagers. Love at our house right now is a choice. It is not a feeling. It is a choice. And it is a sacrifice. He goes, let me tell you the sacrifice you're going to make. He talks about how this is going to affect our immorality, our speech, how much we drink and never to be drunk. And then he gets to verse 21. So submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Submit to who? Come on, church, we're going to do this together. Submit to who? One another. I'm tired of this passage being used as, well, women have to submit to husbands. Women have to submit to husbands. I'm all, well, you got half of that right. This is how we're going to submit to one another. And these first verses aren't revolutionary. These first verses didn't break the bank when it came to the Greek and Roman world. These first verses are simply how it was. He's just given women a different model and motive for it. When it said, wives, yes, submit to your husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is head of the wife, as Christ is head of the church, his body, of which he is Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. That wasn't earth-shattering. Man, the Greek and Roman world, women were objects. They were possessions. They had to submit to the husband. If they dared not, the consequences were severe. They were to be kept at home and to raise children, preferably male children. But all the husband's conquest and value and most of his sexual identity was found outside the home. What the Bible said is, here's what the difference. You're now a Christian. You're going to respect him, not because he deserves it. The Bible doesn't say that. You're going to respect him when you see his heart start changing. No, the Bible doesn't say that. You're going to respect him because as a Christian, he's going to start loving you. No, the Bible doesn't say that. In fact, the Bible implies, look who you married. Amy, you married a West Texas bonehead that's pretty devoid of feelings. He doesn't get this. You're going to respect him out of your reverence for Christ because you're a Christian. You're going to make the choices to respect that guy. Because it doesn't matter what his position. It doesn't matter what his rank. It doesn't matter how much he earns. Your voice screams louder than anything. And in this day and age where I know women are taking a beating with sexuality and femininity on every billboard, on every magazine rack, but every guy is walking around a 30, 40, or 50-year-old boy. Few of us have had examples of what a godly man is, and we haven't been trained in it. All we know is whatever it is, I'm far from it. And it is Eve's voice that we crave. It is page 2 of the Bible. God created Adam, had him all to himself, perfect environment, perfect job, and God said, this ain't good. You need her. We're incomplete. Creation is incomplete without woman. And her voice is going to resonate in you. And it doesn't matter what you make or where you work or what you do. If things aren't good there, you're not good as a man, and we all know it. So yeah, I'm going to ask you to respect him. But now, it's simply because you're a Christ follower. Do this for me. These next verses shattered society. These next verses is where the Bible came to be mocked and laughed at. Husbands, Agape your wives. Sacrificially love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, to present her to himself as a radiant church, without stain, without wrinkle, without blemish, but holy and blameless. In this same way, husbands, you ought to love your wives as your own bodies, because he who loves his wife loves himself. Let me tell you, in sacrificially killing yourself for her, you're going to get the relationship you wanted in return. But it comes by you laying down and falling on the sword first. Age and time may have given her some spots, but not in your eyes and not in your relationship. You're going to present her as spotless. Time and gravity and 3 kids have created some wrinkles. She'll see those in the mirror and she'll quickly wink at them because your words have covered them up. She is spotless. She is without wrinkle. She is without blame. She is radiant. She is the most dearly loved, deeply loved woman on the face of the earth. And she treasures and carries that value because your words have made her so. Notice he says that's not the reality. That's the choice. You're going to do this as Christ loved the church. Oh, the church is an ugly bride at times. She is wrinkled. She is full of stains. She is full of spots. And Jesus says, not in my eyes. Well, how far do I go with this? Do you understand her nagging? Why don't you do this? How come you down in? How come you down? And he goes, oh, guys, I understand. You stop loving her when you die. You kill yourself for her. That's the cross you carry. This isn't extra credit. This isn't if you want to make relationships better in life. He said, no, because you're a Christian, here's how the two of you are going to do this thing. See, let me give you the life hack. Once we understand love is a choice, then we have to make it all about me. And some of you go, whoa, I've made a relationship all about me before. It didn't work. No, here's what I mean by that. It's going to start with you. You put all the pressure on this relationship on you. You say, I'm going to pick, if this is the cross I carry, this is how I'm doing this. You make it all about me, which means number 1, I have to put their needs and interests first. I have to put their needs and interest first. I have to be the one that changes. I'm going to ask you to do some of the most unfair things anyone's ever asked you to do, but I hope you've gone into marriage realizing it's an incredibly unfair contract. If you're a parent struggling with the child struggling with the parent, if you're struggling with the relationship at work, if you're trying to figure out, how come I don't have great friends? How do I make myself more friendly? You make it all about you. And you decide, I'm going to start putting their needs and interests first. That's Philippians 2, by the way, in your note sheet. If you've got any grace, if there's anything in your heart that's beaming because of your love for Christ, then do this. Consider others better than yourself. Put their needs and interests first. You take on that mind of Christ and say it's a choice. Why do I keep coming back to God? Because of his forgiveness, his grace, and his mercy. That's what brings me to this God. That's what drew me to this God. May I remind you, those are choices God has made toward me. May I remind you, Romans 5 says, why we were still enemies, that God demonstrated or showed his own love for us, that he died for us. God never woke up one morning and said, oh, look at Chris. Oh, Chris is so cute. Chris is so awesome. Man, Chris makes me feel so good. I'm going to start doing some stuff for Chris. Now, God woke up and said, there's not enough lightning bolts I've created for that dude. I'm going to choose to love him. And the grace and mercy brings me back to God over and over again. He goes, you can do this. Your relationships are going to be filled, a hallmark of grace and mercy and forgiveness, because that's who your Father is, and he's created you to reflect this, and you're going to put their needs and interests first. You see on this wheel, these things aren't all or nothing. These things have a gradient, if you will, with them, of 0 to 100. When we got 100%, these things are filled, but these things are all over the map. We're going to take forgiveness. Forgiveness is hardly ever 100%. Some things we forgive, some things we're holding on to. Maybe you got your forgiveness up at about an 80%. We're going to take commitment. Man, our commitment, we are all in. We've never been fully committed. There's times where we waver on our commitment, on our perseverance, on our communication. Where's your communication meter right now? My bet is he'd give it an 82. You'd give it a 14. We got different definitions on communication. But when we put the needs and interests of them above our else, we got to understand this wheel is constantly in flux. Marriage is a lot like an escalator. It feels like you're standing still, but you're either going up or you're going down. Where's your marriage heading? Where's your relationship heading? You want a life hack on a relationship, you make it all about you. I'm going to be the one that takes control over this. I'm going to be the one that goes out and does this. I'm going to look like Christ. That's what he did. He made the first moves. And I'm going to put their needs and interests first. It's the everyday choices. It's me calling Amy. And I know the kids didn't have any activities that night. We got a rare night. Everyone's going to be at home. It's going to be a family dinner. Amy was going to cook something special. So I call her and say, babe, I'm on my way home. I live 5 minutes from here. I'm on my way home. An hour and 20 minutes later, I walk in the door. Don't laugh at me. Don't judge. I don't need to be judged up here. It's illustration only. An hour and 20 minutes, I walk in the door. I take one look at Amy and I realize, oh, somebody's in trouble. I'm going to figure out who. Where have you been? I tell her, oh my gosh. Well, I got done with my last meetings. It was kind of a late day, you know that. I was walking out and there was no one left in the office to sign checks. And I just thought, we had a stack of 80 checks and you have to do your signature. And I'm not just going to sign a check after, what are they for? What are they doing? Is there any amounts on them? I have to look at 80 checks, babe. That's tough for me to do and I got to sign them. And then I come walking on the parking lot and there's a whole group of people that come in a growth group that meets on campus. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we just ran into you. This is a godsend. We were just talking about you. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? Well, so-and-so's aunt had a cat, and the cat died, and they were going to bury her, but they came back in the room, and the cat's now alive. Does God bring cats back to life? And in that short amount of time, did the cat go to heaven? Does the cat go to heaven to people? We had an argument. No, then you walk in, and now we want to know from you. And I don't have the heart as a pastor in my own church parking lot to go, you guys annoy me, and just walk away. Because that's not good. So I have to tell them, well, let me tell you about animals in heaven and what I know, and there is a lion, a lamb, a serpent, but I don't have, people have souls, animals don't have. Do you love the cat? Okay, the cat's in heaven. I don't care. And I just walk away. And then I'm finally getting to where my car is in sight, and this couple pulls up and walks out, and they're like, we can't believe we just ran into you. We've been going to a different campus for the last 3 years. We've never even seen you before, and we've always wanted to bump into you. Can we just share our story real quick, and how am I supposed to say no to that? They're coming for a counseling appointment. He's been sober now for 4 years. But 5 years ago, her family did an intervention just to get her away from him. They're done. They're done. And now here's where our relationship is, and here's what we're doing, and we've been coming here, and God's doing amazing work in our life. And now her parents are starting to come to church, and it's an amazing story. And I got in the truck, and yes, it's been an hour and 20 minutes, and Amy doesn't care. Not because she's some heartless pastor's wife, because she knows that can be every day in your life, Chris. All I know is you told me 5 minutes. I got the kids to a place where they could stop their homework and they started to wash up. I put everything on the table and we sat there. And as 15 and 20 minutes went by, the kids started getting antsy. I told them it's a family dinner night. We're not going to eat without Dad. At 30 minutes, I took the food off the table and I put it back in the oven. And I told the kids to go ahead and start on homework again. I tried to call you and I go, no, you didn't. I look down and I go, oh yeah, there's 2 missed calls. See, when I make it all about me, number 2, I have to make it all about the little things. You want to make a choice to have a relationship based on love, write it down. It's all about the little things. Let me show you what happens that day when I walk in the door. If I tell her I'm home in 5 minutes and I show up an hour and 20 minutes late, there better be an ambulance dropping me off. Otherwise, our wheel has just taken a beating. The trust factor that we had up to a 98 comes crashing down to a 70. Integrity, she doesn't think I have it right now. Value, she feels valueless. There's no compassion going on. She doesn't think I have effort. And I built that thing up to a 74, and now it's down to a 10. Commitment that she's questioning right now. I'm not sacrificing. I need forgiveness. We both lost our faith in this conversation. Nobody is laughing. I'm not going to get any of, and this whole wheel starts crashing down. You see how it works? One phone call and my wheel is this size. And it is daily. It's all about the little things. And keeping this in mind, love isn't a feeling or emotion. It's got to be a choice we make. We have to understand that daily, I have to say it's her needs and interest above mine. Daily, I have to say, what are the little things that happen? And you say, Chris, do you think you can save your marriage because of a phone call? Yes. She's taught me. Pick up the phone when a group comes to you and just say, hey, well, let's talk about your cat in a second. My wife's waiting for me. Hey, babe, there's people here wanting to know if a dead cat that's alive now actually went to heaven. Can I call you when I'm really coming home? And that's happened so many times. Amy's now told me, you know what? Don't call until you're in your truck and you're off the church parking lot. And she goes, then I know you're coming home. Because I don't want your desires of when you're going to be home. Just let me know when you're coming home. And if that's 6:30, 7:30, or 8, just tell me when you're coming home. And every time I do that, I make a choice. I make a positive choice to add to our marriage wheel. And every time I make marriage about me, I make a negative choice. Whatever relationship you need work on, whether it's a family relationship, a friend relationship, a romantic relationship, a significant other, a marriage, this is the start date. If you're married, put it down. Ours is August 20-something, 1995. Come within a year, it doesn't matter. It's for illustration purposes. And this is your relationship. And here's what 1 Corinthians 7 says. 1 Corinthians 7 says, man, if you're single and you get married, you haven't sinned, but I want you to know this. Every marriage will be full of trouble. Isn't that a good biblical definition of marriage? Some of us should put that verse on the coffee mug. Now that's, oh, God will richly provide me with everything I enjoy. No, marriage is full of trouble. And just have a, you're biblical, babe. Thank you. In every marriage with two broken people and individuals, these things are going to hit. These things are marriage killers. They come in all different shapes and sizes. We were talking this week in our sermon prep class about doing a life hack on relationships. And I talked about the wheel and the graph, and I said, we've done that for Carlsbad and San Marcos before. But the whole room's like, we've never seen that. I go, it's on our pre-marriage class. And I realized only 2% of North Coast has been in a conference where Amy and I do this. I just confused Amy and Larry. I've been here too long. Where Amy and I do this. And they're like, hey, I think all of us need a refresher to hear for the first time. These things are going to come. There may be money issues. There may be in-law issues. There may be some sickness issues. There may be loss of job, loss of house. There may be a relationship, an opposite sex relationship that's interfering or getting in the way. They're all different shapes or sizes. But for 28 years, I've worked at a church and I've heard couple after couple come in and talk about the problems. And after about year 15 or so, it started to hit me. Well, everybody has problems. Why are some people getting derailed and other people are just flying through them? And that's when the wheels started to come together for me and making it all about the little things. When you make it about them in your relationship, not you. Oh, we all crave relationship. We all want to be loved. We all want to be respected. We all want to have those deep friendships. We all want to have intimacy. But when we make it about the other person, that's what the Bible says. Hey, it'll come back to you. You learn to sacrificially kill yourself for your wife. He goes, it's going to come back to you. Honey, you learn to respect him even though he doesn't respect you. He goes, it's going to come back to you. He goes, you act like Christ. And by the way, you were created for this. You're his dearly loved child. You were made for this. And when you start making those positives, the daily little things, when trouble hits, your marriage tank is going to hit it full up here. Now, Amy and I still have to get up and over this issue. We still have to work through this issue. It's going to take some effort. It's going to take some time, but we can get through the problems of life. But when you've been making a relationship about you, you're going to hit this problem down here. And your marriage tank is running quarter empty. And it's going to take an uphill battle to get over this thing. It takes a lot to get through these issues in life. But the pluses and the minuses on your sheet, they don't stay parallel, do they? You see, the more I build into marriage and the more I make it about her, or the more I decide to make it about me, and I'm stuck in traffic on the 10 freeway, 8 months into our marriage, we're in the midst of one of our second issues, and she's not worth fighting for. And if I did try to fight for her, I don't want to win her back. And this is where every couple comes in and sits and says, we've fallen out of love. We just fell out of love. It is impossible to fall out of love because you can't fall into it. Love is a choice. You haven't fallen out of love. Somewhere in the last 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, someone has chosen to stop loving. You're sharing a roof and a bank account and maybe some kids, but nothing else. And you've convinced yourself, well, this is just how marriage is right now. I guess this is just what life's going to be. I guess this is just how it's going to be with him or with her. And you're starting to get into misery. And no one could have told me anything right here to get me through this. On the other hand, you see marriages that have built into each other. Marriages that say it's always about her. It's always about her. It's always about her. And when problems hit, you may have to work through them, but they never even make a blip on the marriage line. Oh, we got issues right now, but they don't affect our marriage. We've been doing this. Do you see how this works? When you realize love is a choice, it's not an emotion. The Bible and The Bachelor have taught us that. When I make the choices to love, the heart will follow. And I don't know how to tell you this, because no one with words or a whiteboard could have changed my mind. All I know is that 22 years ago, I almost threw away the greatest thing God has given me, and the greatest gift I have, and the most important thing in my life today. And someone said, you better start loving. You've done the first 8 months your way. You thought you had the type of love to base a marriage on. That's a fallacy. You simply had the type of love to start a marriage with. And if you rested on that love, you're dead. You're dead. How you doing with your son or daughter? How you doing with a parent? How you doing as a friend? Are you someone that always puts their needs and interests first? Are you someone that daily chooses the little things and says, I'm going to make it about them? But that's the type of person that attracts people. That's the type of person that garners deep friendships and relationships. All of us crave to be loved. All of us want to be loved. But if we make it about us, it's never going to happen. No one wants to enter into a one-sided contract. You see, lastly, I have to make it about serving, not being served. I have to make it about serving, not being served. Oh, everything within me wants to be served. Everything within me wants to be treated as a king. But my king showed that if to be greatest, you got to be last. To be first, you have to be servant of all. For even the Son of Man didn't come to be served, but to serve. You can do this, boy. You're created in my image. And I've showed you how to have love. You can do this, daughter. You're created in Dad's image. You're created to reflect his love. Now, before we close, I have to state this as clearly as I can. There are some of you, because of the degree of rejection, betrayal, hurt, and pain in your relationship, there is no amount of whiteboard drawing that's going to help you today. This is for all of us just going through relationships and struggling. But there are some of you that your relationship is broken, severely broken. You need help. It's why we have 16 licensed counselors and therapists that work in our counseling center here. It's why they have offices on all of our campuses, wherever you're watching. And man, I encourage you to get help. We all need help in marriage. Don't just let it go. Don't just say, well, that's the way it's going to be. Man, seek help with professionals who are taught to train this and to taught to say, here's how you need to start working it out. Because there are some of you here, and this isn't going to help. What's been done has blown stuff up into fragments, and it's going to take work to piece it back together. I'm just encouraging you to fight for this. Guys, let me give you a third for free life hack on relationships. I love being called God's son. I love calling God my father. I love knowing I'm his little dude and he loves me in spite of who I am. I love that. I tell you, marriage took a little change for me when I realized, oh, that's his daughter. Through those 8 months that I had with Amy, my walk with God wasn't good because he knew how I was treating his daughter. Guys, from now on when we pray, I say, oh, dear Father, dear Heavenly Father. Let's start our prayers this way. Dear Father-in-law. You know how I've been treating your little girl, so I know we're good. Let's start prayers that way. Dear Father-in-law, you know how I've been treating your little girl, so I know you and I are good. And then let's talk about what we need to talk about with God. But if we can't get through that first line, man, I felt like I'm calling out to a father-in-law who's like, really? You're coming and asking me for stuff? Woo-hoo, some nerve there, buddy. My girl cries herself to sleep at night. And I'm like, that's her spiritual gift. He goes, no, you're her spiritual curse. Ladies, start the prayer. Dear father-in-law, you know how much I respect your son just because you asked me to. That's biblical. Just because you asked me to. So now here's what I want to share. We have to get back to a definition of love that we know innately. It's a choice, it's not a feeling. We have to get back to a definition in relationships that's beyond me going to Hooked on Sushi and sitting down with too many rolls on the table and going, I love this. We got to get back to a choice, regardless of what the heart and the emotions feel like. And say, I'm going to choose to do this, God, simply because I'm a Christian. This isn't extra credit. This isn't to be over the top. This is our command. And the first century was ripped apart because marriages started doing things differently. And people realized there's a difference there. Father, may you give us your strength to do this, because on our own we can't. On my own, I'm selfish and I want to be served. On my own, I want to make it all about me in all the wrong ways. On my own, I'm going to love Amy when she deserves it. And so, God, give us your strength and your spirit to be more like you in our relationships. May we be people that choose to love others. And in the midst of that, may you do what you promised to do. Change us from the inside out. For the marriages that are heartbroken today and cold, may they walk away with hope of knowing when we surrender in obedience to you, that's all you need to do what you want to do in us and through us. May we start with obedience, God. May you do the rest. In Jesus' name, amen. You know, as you go, this is one of those that just has homework for us to walk out and say, I'm going to do this, but not on my own strength. This has got to be by the Spirit of God. It's got to be help from Him. He made us to be in this relationship. He's promised to give us what we need when we just give Him faithfulness. So come back next week. We're going to do another life hack. It's going to be good. Until then, hey, greet somebody that now knows everything there is about love. We'll see you next week.